Hey there, and welcome back to Utility Sports. In today's video, we are going to be covering NFL draft fallers. Now, this is not necessarily if I agree if they should fall. This is more so what I've been hearing in the scouting community and people that are closely involved with the NFL draft and have a good understanding of where executives are currently sitting with prospects. And this is kind of a comprehensive list of guys that's names have been a little bit more associated with negative connotations than anything. So jumping into it right away with our first one is a highly controversial prospect. Some people love him. Some people really don't like him. That's Derek Stingley Jr. If you think back to his 2019 season as a freshman, he was absolutely outstanding. Great ball skills, true shutdown corner, was thought to be a lock for a potential top 5 pick, later on when he was draft eligible. The COVID season happened and he did not look nearly as good, a little less consistency than we had seen in that freshman campaign. However, he was still an effective player, but not to the level that he was in that freshman year. And then finally here in his junior season, he only played in 3 games, and then he ended up tearing a ligament in his foot, which ultimately derailed his season. And, he's just trying to get back and healthy. And a lot of people are probably concerned about that torn ligament in his foot. I'm not exactly sure if, that would completely deter me from taking him. However, I've been seeing his name continuously slide down on boards. There's some scouts that definitely have some concerns about him at the next level. So that's, something I've been hearing. And I don't know if that's necessarily warranted, but with the rise of Sauce Gardner and him being, potentially the number 1 corner off the board, that definitely puts things into perspective for Derek Stingley. Maybe he starts to fall a little bit, because if Sauce Gardner is the first corner taken, is there a chance that he slides, out of that top 12? It's very, very possible. And that's something that we had not thought at any point, previously that was going to happen. We thought he was probably going to be a lock to be a top 10 pick. A lot of people thought that. I also felt that way. However, he ends up sliding a little bit potentially due to a little inconsistent play, and he hasn't had a great elite season since 2019, which, we are a long ways removed from that. Whether it's warranted or not, I don't really know. However, Derek Stingley is the name I want to be monitoring. Now, moving on to the other ones here, we have Treylon Burks, and Treylon Burks is a guy that I definitely think is hyped up a lot by the media, and I also think he's a terrific player myself. I definitely do. Great after the catch, wide catch radius. That's something that's really, really big, considering he stands at about 6'3". And he was a dominant player in the SEC. There's no doubting that. However, people have some current concerns about his long speed, also a little bit of short area quickness. Now, this guy is not an absolute burner. I mean, he ran a 4.55, with his 40 time, which didn't blow the doors off of anyone. However, I think at the next level, he will be enough. But I've just been hearing his name continuously slide down. There's people in the, that are very, very close to some of the executives that think he could potentially be a round 2 guy, which I just don't see that happening. But I do see how there is a pathway where he slides a little bit. I just don't see him going out of the first round. There's a lot of wide receiver needy teams in the 20s that definitely could use him to line out wide. There's so much that this guy can do. I've just been hearing a lot about him potentially falling out with the 40 time that wasn't super blazing fast. However, people aren't as in love potentially, in these front offices as we are as, fans and members of the media. Now, the next one, Tyler Linderbaum. And Linderbaum is a guy that when you think about him, you think consistency, toughness, ability to get to the second level. There's a lot to love about him as a prospect, but his arm measurements were extremely, extremely short. 31 and 1/8 inch arms. Now that's tiny. So, really it's important in those trenches to have long arms. That's why it's when you go through the pre-draft process, you want to make sure that these guys have great reach. And for offensive linemen, that's super crucial at the next level. A lot of guys are going to try to beat you with power and everything, but, having that length to really attack first is absolutely, it's not make or break, but it's kind of a big deal to have at least average size arms. But Linderbaum's are very, very small. But the tape does not lie, I don't think. I mean, you look at a lot of these Iowa games, he's a dominant player at that center spot, really smart, and a guy that can be a major contributor as a center at the next level. But I have been seeing him once again. This is a guy that continues to fall on draft boards. So I'm not really sure exactly where these executives are feeling, but I think it's very possible he does take a slide. It's very, very crucial for teams to do their homework. And I understand the concerns about, hand size for quarterback or arm length for offensive and defensive linemen. There's so much to consider when looking at these prospects in a vacuum. However, Tyler Linderbaum's name continues to fall down boards. Now, the next one I got is Nakobe Dean from Georgia. Once again, this has to go with a measurement issue. He's 5'11". I think he's 229 pounds. With with that measurements, that's not super groundbreaking. Now, when you're looking at prototypical linebackers, they generally come quite a bit taller than that. And I think Nakobe Dean's a terrific linebacker in his own right. But, to be a first round, true linebacker, you have to have the measurements to really match up with the production and the tape. Nakobe Dean has the production and that tape to show for it. However, those measurements are something that are scaring teams a little bit. You got to think about when you're tackling running backs. I mean, some of them are much bigger at the NFL level. Granted, he did play in the SEC, which features a lot of really, really good running backs. But Nakobe Dean as well, he's got to be able to fight through blockers, and he would have had to have been absolutely dominant at doing so in college in order to feel a little bit better. However, that just wasn't necessarily the case. I think he's a terrific all-around player. I think he's great. But I think that will be a hindrance on how teams view him and feel about him moving forward. So Nakobe Dean is a guy that's potentially going to slide. And that finally leads us to our final guy, which is George Karlaftis. George Karlaftis is one of those players that at one point in the season, we were talking about him potentially being a top 10 pick, maybe as far as saying a top 5 selection. However, it just has not panned out that way. I think a lot of teams are kind of pulling back on him a little bit. Once again, is it warranted? I don't really know. I think he's a good player in his own right. Not super explosive. He's got a quick first step, but he's not super explosive. But I do think he's going to be a quality player at the next level. But teams have definitely been knocking him down on their boards. Not the most elite athlete in the entire world. However, like he talked about in some of his interviews, speed to power was his big thing. And, he wins a lot with power. That's a big part of his game. And once you get to the NFL level, you got to have a little bit of both, to be honest. I think if you're a guy like George Karlaftis, you got to win a little more with finesse. Power is a big part of his game. So a lot of it's predicated on strength and the ability to just outmuscle the guy ahead of him or in front of him. But at the next level, it's a little more difficult to do that, considering the guys are much stronger. So George Karlaftis is a name to watch, potentially could fall, into the late teens to mid 20s. It really depends on where teams are feeling on him. However, I think he's going to be a quality contributor at the next level. Not all of these are necessarily warranted in terms of falling. However, those are some names that we definitely got to watch in the first round that could be fallers. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you are new. Also, leave a like on today's video if you did enjoy the content. I appreciate all the support. Let me know in the comments section below who else could be potential fallers in the draft. Thanks for stopping by. We'll catch you in the very next video.